Everybody doing today? Welcome to my photography chat live stream where we talk about photography and gear, and also I like you guys to drive the conversation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them. And also, I like to catch up with the community, see how everybody's doing. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, thanks. And as always, I did some photography this week. Um, I guess, there's a lot of news, right? There's a little more detail on the OM5 Mark II, and also, I guess Fuji released their XC5, which is interesting. And uh, well, those are the only two come to mind. I guess those are the two big ones. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The OM5 is going to be announced in a couple days. But the leak specs that I've seen so far looks like basically it's the same as the OM5. Maybe there's a USB-C port now, but I don't see really anything new, which would be really disappointing if it still has the old menu system and same sensor, processor, all of that. Uh, but it will be available in new colors. So I think really it kind of reminds me of when the EM10 Mark II came out, and then they offered an update, like maybe it was the EM10 Mark III, but they called it like the EM10 Mark III S or something. It was just a very, very minor update, maybe a different color. I feel like that's what they should have done here, is just called it like the OM52S, uh, and just offer some different colors and the USB-C port, just some minor updates. And I think that would have gone over a little better, but we'll see. I don't know what the camera's gonna be, because it's not gonna be officially announced until, Tuesday, but I think the rumors are, we're so close to the launch date, I'm sure the rumors are correct, and it looks like it's gonna be pretty much the same thing. But let me know what you guys think. Um, I mean, the two things that come to mind for me, is the base plate needs to be reinforced. They need to put USB-C in, and it'd been nice if it had all of the OM3 specs, right? But just in a smaller body. But I don't think we're going to get that because I didn't see anything new in the leaked specs. So if that's the case, then again, I'll probably be skipping this camera as well, because I skipped the OM5 Mark I, and looks like I'm going to skip the Mark II as well. Now, the OM3, I am delighted with. I'm so happy with that camera. I think I said this last week. It's the nicest camera I've ever bought, uh, and I have no complaints, no regrets uh, of buying that camera at all. In fact, I was thinking just this morning I should maybe get another one and maybe sell off my own one. I don't know. No, the OM1 is better for doing events and not events, but doing some of my other paid jobs. For events, though, I like to use the OM3 because it's kind of a fancy camera, and that retro vibe really gets some attention, and just sort of removes that little bit of intimidation from being photographed. I think when you're expected to be photographing, as a hired photographer, it seems to even put people more at ease. So I'm digging that. Uh, and I'm thinking about maybe maybe trying to find a good used EM10 Mark II. So one that I have is it's been beat to hell all these years, but it's finally really starting to get very, very flaky, to where I can't even use it as a webcam anymore, which I normally do. Right now I'm using the EM5 Mark III as my primary webcam, but that was always my B cam. Let me turn it on and see what happens. It's it's been a little. Draw. Uh, but that's that. And I've been thinking about the cameras that I bought over the years, and cameras I'm thinking about getting maybe in the near future. And I was really waiting to see what the OM5 Mark II is going to be. So we'll see in a couple days. But it doesn't look like I'll be getting that one. But I'm thinking, I started my journey back in 2013 with the Sony NEX6, which I still have. And then I moved on to Nikon D80, D7 7500, the D7100, then the D750, because I actually didn't like the electronic viewfinder. I preferred the optical viewfinder for a while. And then, the gear on the D750, the lenses and everything got super heavy and bulky. I had the trinity of Sigma Art lenses, and you know how big and heavy those lenses are, right? The 51.4, the 24 to 105 f4, and I also had the APS-C 18 to 51.8, and some other one. Uh, but yeah, my bag was so heavy. So I said, I can't. And I had a 150 to 600. So I'm thinking, I went to the EM10 Mark II. Didn't know anything about micro four thirds. Other than when I was buying my initial camera, I was thinking about it, about an EM1 Mark I, but it was like $400 more than a Sony NEX6 at the time. So I said, nah, I'll just get the Sony. Uh, but yeah, and the only reason I went from like, say, the D7100 to the D750, well, my D7100, I broke it. The little screw, I didn't actually break it, but the little eyelet where you put the strap in, there's a little nut under there that fell into the camera and shorted the electronics out. Uh, so when I went to replace it, I just went with a D750, but I went with the full frame mainly because the EVF, I'm not sorry, the optical viewfinder was much bigger than on APS-C, and I really liked the bigger optical viewfinder. Uh, and that was the primary reason, not because I needed, you know, more resolution or better noise, performance, because I shot everything with flash. Even then, I was shooting with flash and base ISO, so I didn't care about ISO, if that was even an issue back then. And then, yeah, so I went to the EM10 Mark II. I almost got a Fuji XT10, but I put the two cameras side by side, and I said, yeah, I think the Olympus is a little cheaper and it's a little smaller, right, with the kit lens. I said this will be good enough, and then of course the rest is history. So, but yeah, but since I got into Micro Four Thirds, the M10 Mark II I've had the longest. A couple of months after I bought the M10, I bought the Pen F because that was released in September, or not in September. I bought it in September of 2013, I believe. 2013 or 20, no, I'm sorry, September of 2015 or 16. One of those 2 years, I can't remember which. And that's been my most used camera to date. It's going to be taken over by the OM3 here probably in another year or two, but uh, that's been my most used camera. I would say my least used camera really has probably been that I've had for any length of time, right? Because I've got cameras up there that are relatively new. They've hardly been used at all. Those don't really count. But, my least used camera really that are digital, the film cameras really hardly get any use, although I do like to take them out time to time. I think honestly, It's probably been the TG5. Um, as great a camera as that is, I just like taking, the OM3 or whatever else, the Pen F, because I had the Pen F alongside a TG5 for the longest time, and I just enjoyed taking the Pen F out rather than the TG5. And then my D750 collected dust, and I eventually traded that and got a Nikon DF, and that really doesn't get used very much either. Um, but anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now, or that's where I've been. Where am I going, right? Well, I'm not going with the OM5 Mark II unless there's some surprise there. I didn't go with the OM1 Mark II because the OM1 Mark I is more than capable for my needs, and that's for birding and paid jobs. I did get the OM3, of course, which I've mentioned, but uh, yeah. So the Fuji XC5, and that's an interesting camera. I really, I've always liked rangefinder style, obviously, because I have the Pen F, and the XC5 is basically a miniature XH2, which you already have, right? Or smaller XT5, or about the same size as an XT50. But I feel like, if it's in other places, it's been launched at the same price as the XT50, is what I heard. But here in the US, it's three or $400 more than an XT50. And so I think I'd rather just have an XT50 for the price difference. And the used XT50s, they're holding their value. I didn't see any for less than 1,200, and I think they're 1,400 brand new. So they're holding their value pretty well. And I don't know. I just don't see any reason to spend that much on a used camera. Uh, when a brand new one costs only a couple hundred more, I might as well just buy brand new. But the XT50 doesn't interest me much because I had an XT30 for about 3 years, and I think I took like 2,000 shots on it. That was the shutter count on it after 3 years. Uh, I could probably say the same about my XH2. I don't think I put more than a couple thousand clicks on it, if that. Because and it's not, and I bought all the lenses I wanted for it, but it's just a bigger, heavier system, and I feel like I do prioritize smaller size and weight, and hence that's why the Micro Four Thirds is always my go-to system. Um, but I don't know. Are any of you guys tempted by the XE5? It's a really nice looking camera, and I'm sure the image quality is equal to my XH2, which it's fabulous. It has great image quality. Uh, Let me know. Let me know in the chat if you guys are interested in that camera at all, or if you're interested in OM5 Mark II. Because if you have an EM10 Mark II, or an EM10, any version, or an older camera, and you want another small camera, maybe the OM5 Mark II is interesting to you, right? Maybe you're thinking about that. I mean, I would probably, depending on the specs, I'd probably steer you back to the Mark One, the OM5 Mark One, because I'm seeing those go for about $800, $900 new, $800 used. Uh, if there aren't any substantial updates to it, I would probably steer you towards an OM1 Mark One. I think the OM1, I'm sorry, the OM5 Mark One. I think the EM5 Mark III, it's selling for a little less than an OM5, but the OM5 is a substantially better camera in my opinion in terms of autofocus and face detect, and the general overall performance of the camera is going to be better. So if you're debating between an EM5 Mark III and an OM5, just get the OM5. It's worth the extra $100. But I would say, is the OM5 Mark II worth an extra few $100s? I don't know. I don't know based on the leak specs so far. Uh, when you can still get an OM5 Mark One with a warranty. for like 900 bucks, right? And Paul says, Nikon seem to be going above and beyond with their firmware updates. I see they've just announced version 3 for the Z8 that includes combined pixel shift and focus shift or AE bracketing. Yeah, that was an interesting update. It's nothing that OM systems couldn't do, right? Uh, I'd have to see what the focus shift is exactly. Are they talking about focus bracketing or are they talking about uh it's gotta be focus bracketing. I didn't look at it that closely. I assume it's some form of focus bracketing combined with the high res shot mode. And I believe you still have to export those and post process them to get the high res image. So the workflow has not improved, right? And that's really the biggest problem with all these other companies, other than Panasonic, is the workflow for the high res shot mode is not it's not it's not worth it to me. you know? Uh it's nicer to have it in camera because you can see the results right away, and because sometimes you need to do it over, right? Says, "Oh, man, I didn't do that quite right. Let me try another one. Let me try another one." Because the workflow is very quick in camera. It's like, what, 10 or 15 seconds, and you see your results right away. Whereas the every other system except Panasonic, the workflow is terrible. In my Fuji and my Sony, now Nikon, I assume also you have to use a third-party software. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the fact that they offer that is great for Nikon shooters that want to take their 48 megapixels and jump it up to 180 or something, whatever that might be. If you need that kind of resolution, and I'm sure there's certainly some use cases professionally for super high res like that. But I would argue it's mostly for enthusiasts like us, right? That we just want to do it and get 180 megapixels and enjoy the resolution that that would offer. So, but it's interesting combining that with focus shift, combining it with bracketing. We can kind of do that manually, right? In our own system cameras, we would just take three high res shots, but we'd have to combine them in post processing, right? Do an HDR in post processing, which is not too different than what uh, you have to do with the Nikon anyway. So combining high res shot with exposure bracketing, I don't see as really a big deal other than just one less button to push. But oops, sorry. Anyhow, Nikon has always been a great camera company, and they've made fabulous cameras. I used Nikon for many years. Still have many, I still have a few Nikons laying around. I still have my D80 and my DF, right? I don't have any of their Z mount cameras. I saw a Z5 this morning for like 600 bucks or something. I was like, $600. It's hardly anything, but I don't know what I would do with the camera once I got it. I'd have to start buying lenses for it. It gets expensive, and then the camera doesn't do anything that I can't do already with any number of other cameras that I have. Uh, so I didn't even at 600 bucks. I'm just not that interested. And the Z5 II is like $1,000 more, brand new, right? Or $600, $600 or $700 more brand new than a brand new Z5 with the current sales going on. So yeah, I don't get it, and I know that the lens system, if I wanted to use it for any kind of birding, wildlife, it's not it's not attractive to me because of the size of the lenses to get the kind of reach that I would want. If I wanted to get the same 800 millimeter field of view on a Nikon, uh, I'd have to get their APS-C camera and a 500 millimeter, whatever f-stop that is. That could be doable, but then that's still a big setup, and it's not as capable as my OM one, right? With the pro capture um, and the frames per second, right? I was watching Robin's live stream the other day, and he doesn't care about the 50 frames per second, 100 frames per second, right? He just has no use case for it, right? But as a birder, sports action wildlife guy, I do use the 50 frames per second time to time. I usually keep it at 25. But when there's a kingfisher or like an osprey or any kind of kingfishers in particular, but if they're diving into the water to catch a fish, uh, 50 frames per second will get you the shot, right, that you want, or give you a much better chance of getting that shot of the fish, of the beak of the kingfisher just tipping into the edge of the water. That's sort of my halo shot right now. I'm still trying to get that. I came close a couple times, but yeah, not yet. I'm gonna get that shot one day. I'm gonna get it. But yeah, that's a typical use case for me where I appreciate the 50 frames per second, and I have used 100 or 120 frames per second for a golfing event to record the golfer swing, right, as he's going, and and I got full 20 megapixel shots at 120 frames per second, and I was able to record almost a full stroke, right? If I had the OM1 Mark II, I could get the entire stroke no problem because it has such a big buffer. I was a little bit handicapped with the 90 frame buffer because that's like less than 2 seconds, right? And sometimes the golf swing took a little more than that. But anyhow, because I'm using Pro Capture and all of that. Let's see. If it's only minor updates, I'll stay with the OM5 Mark I. The E5 interests me, but I'm not sure I want to get into another system. I might get the E5. I assume you mean the XE5 and a wide zoom. Maybe, but like you said, why get into another system that you're not really going to get into long term? Because right now, the OM5 is probably fitting all of your needs. You probably got a nicely flushed out lens system, and otherwise, you're going to end up like me with hundreds of lenses and cameras, and just really only taking out one or two, at any given time. I will say one of my favorite camera purchases outside of Micro Four Thirds has been that Pentax monochrome. It I just love that camera, even though it's a little fiddly with the autofocus. It's not always 100%. I really love the images I get out of that. I mean, I have a thing for black and white photography anyway, so I'm very sensitive to the tonality and things that I'm seeing from a monochrome sensor versus, say, converting a color sensor. But that camera's been yeah, that's one of my favorite purchases. And then I don't know, anyway, let's see. Paul says I've used the 120 FPS for catching water drops when I create a splash. Well, yeah. See, that's another thing I didn't even think of, doing those water drop photography. I mean, there's plenty of applications for very high frame rate uh images, especially because we can capture those at 20 megapixels, whether it's RAW or JPEG. It's a big deal. It's a really nice, fun thing to have for a lot of enthusiasts, right? I can't think of too many professional use cases, maybe in some sports action stuff. Uh, but if I was in that arena, like if I was actually a professional sports photographer, I could probably think of 100 things I could use that for. But since I do mostly birding, I can think of the birding side. Let's see. Oh, Shikabe. Oh, don't worry, Shikabe. That's cool. I'm glad you're able to watch later. Hopefully, you like the new format. I do the photo editing streams on Friday, and I'm thinking about just editing. Like I'll get like 10 or 12 photos, right? So I'll edit like three of them, and then answer questions in the chat, which can take 10 or 15 minutes, and then do another three edits, stop and take questions from the chat related to the edits that I did. So I think I'm going to try that format for a little while. But let me know what you think of that. Okay, see a lot of people here. Thomas and Paul and Barry, good to see you guys. And Tan Ban, I don't see the whole thing there, but cool, cool. So, and Roger's here and Marco's here. Okay, hey Marco and Marcia, good to see you. Brian, and I'm sorry if I missed anybody. Lasse, if possible, a how-to video on that golf swing with Pro Capture would be helpful. Okay. I don't think you really. I need to do a whole video on that. I used a 75 millimeter f1.8. I pre-focused on the golf ball, right, or on their hand or chest, right. I just pre-focused there, and then I did Pro Capture. I set it to like probably 25 frames buffer, and then when he started to swing, I just push and hold it down, and then it would go. So yeah, it's really not much different than taking a single picture of a golf swing, right? Just the difference being is you're half pressing the shutter button, and then when they start to swing, you push and hold it, and then you capture the next 50 to 100 frames, depending on your buffer size. It says having the EM5 Mark III and OM1, so many unused features so far. Yeah, I think I've used them all. I think the least used one is probably it's one of the bracketings, like ISO bracketing. I don't use that at all. I think there's a white balance bracketing. There's a couple of bracketing features I never use, but I do use the high res shot mode, the focus stacking and bracketing. I use the HDR a lot, and in video time to time. I rarely use the Starry Sky AF, so I need to get back into some Astro. I haven't done that in over a year, but yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, I pretty much use them all. Uh, I don't use double exposure very much because I'm so bad at it. I've tried a few times, and every time it looks awful. So yeah, the XC5, the OM5 Mark II, the Nikon Z5 Mark II. So we talked about those. I like to watch Tin House Studio time to time, and he was shopping on MPB for medium format, talking about how you can buy medium format for less than full frame, which yeah, if you're buying a 10-year-old medium format camera, 10 or 15-year-old for that matter, yeah, it's going to be less than a brand new full frame camera, you would hope. But he seems to think that you'll get better image quality from a 10 or 15-year-old full medium format camera like a Hasselblad H4 or H3 versus a brand new, say, Sony A7R5. And for his use case, that might be true, right? Because he's doing single shot or whatever. He's doing product photography, still life. But it kind of contradicts a little bit what he talked about earlier about because he's done a few of these, podcasts, and he talked about how you can do like worldwide campaigns with a 5D Mark II. So why would you spend a boatload of money for a medium format camera? I don't know. I guess I'm not really his audience, but I like to watch him, right? It's always interesting to see how the high end type photographers, meaning, they got agents and they work with agencies and they've done, worldwide campaigns. He's up there. I don't know if he's top tier, but I would imagine he is. And it's always interesting to see his perspective on the photography world. So if you haven't watched Tin House Studio, I recommend checking it out. I think it's an interesting watch. If you're an enthusiast and you like photography and gear, then it's an interesting watch. Do I use time composite? No, I do not use any of the live comp. That is a feature that I underutilize. I do use it for uh, like still life. So, for example, the thumbnail of this live stream, I used live comp to create that image because it's very easy to do. And I've thought about doing live comp for like lightning photography. So that's kind of landscapey, but I've never used it for night landscapes. I'm trying to think, time composite, live composite. Someone did suggest for infrared photography to use, and it might have been you, right? But someone suggested I gotta try that using live time with my infrared photography because you got to put that. Yeah, I'm talking about using an infrared filter, which is like a 20 stop. It basically kills all the light, so you have these 30-second exposures. But I think live time would be a good way to try that. So I might try that next time. Yeah, live comp. Yeah, yeah. I rarely use live comp uh, for anything other than things like thumbnails, still life, tabletop type photography, where I take a flash and I kind of pop it around different places to get the lighting exactly where I want it. And i.e. the thumbnail of this live stream, I use live comp. Okay. Oh, it's quiet today. I guess it's Father's Day, right? So happy Father's Day to everybody that if you have kids. I don't have any kids, so I'm going to go celebrate with my sister and her husband. So they don't have a Happy Uncle's Day, do they? But I'm going to go do that after the stream. An ATR Bear says, "Good morning, Rob. Are you excited about the new OM5 Mark II?" I am not, based on what I've seen so far leaked. I'm not too excited. Uh, I don't see anything new there other than maybe the colors. So, yeah, I'll probably skip that one. And you guys know I'm the biggest fan of OM system. I'm really happy with my OM5 or OM3. But yeah, the OM5, I just don't see it. It's like the original OM5 Mark I didn't excite me very much because it didn't offer anything I needed new. And then the OM5 Mark II looks exactly the same as the Mark I, save for some color. So what I said earlier in the stream was to why didn't they just call it an OM5S, right? Like just something in between, supplemental, something in between the OM5 and the OM5 Mark II. Because in the past, the Mark II series were really big milestones for OM systems. The EM5 Mark II, I think, is one of their best cameras ever. It has a couple of quirks, but it's a great camera. The EM10 Mark II, one of the best cameras they've ever made. And of course, the EM1 Mark II. The Mark II series, and I did a whole video on this years ago. Uh, I think the OM3 is going to go down as one of their finest cameras. You know, the OM1 is a great camera, and that will certainly has its place in history with OM systems because of the subject detect and all the things that it offered. The stacked sensor, so you can get really no rolling shutter, things like that. That's another thing Robin was not impressed with was the stack sensor in the OM1. Again, in his use case, I can see why it doesn't matter. But for birding and wildlife, man, having a stack sensor makes a big difference. So, because when you're panning and trying to capture birds in flight or whatever it is, that rolling shutter is horrible on other camera systems, and not having to worry about that on the OM1 is really a big deal. Now, I will agree with him though that the EM1 Mark III and I can't remember the Mark II because I wasn't into birding back then. But the EM1 Mark III, the rolling shutter was pretty minimal to begin with. So you were still able to use the Pro Capture and high speed shutter uh, without much rolling shutter anyway. So going to a stack sensor, I don't know how much better it is, but it didn't add a whole lot. It wasn't a big, huge leap in terms of performance because the original 20 megapixel sensor was pretty fast in terms of rolling shutter. It didn't really have a problem. But the stack sensor is certainly better, right? So it's better. The stack sensor is better, faster processor for high res shot mode and other things, and shooting at 120 frames per second. And now we have the 200 frame buffer. I mean, the OM1 Mark II is a fabulous camera, but the OM1 started it, right? So I think the OM1 will go down as a. I wouldn't say it was as an epic camera for OM systems, but a really good one. Really one of the better cameras. Uh, like the EM5 Mark III, I think is a great camera, like the OM5, OM5 Mark II. But the EM5 Mark III is significant. It was a significant upgrade to the EM5 Mark II, but I wouldn't call it sort of their pinnacle camera. I would still call the EM5 Mark II sort of the pinnacle of Olympus cameras, right? In terms of that series. The EM1 Mark II is a pinnacle camera. The EM1 Mark III is just kind of an update. The OM1, I don't know. It's too early for me to really say if that's a pinnacle camera or not. I think the OM3 is a pinnacle camera though, because it's really I think a step in the right direction. Meaning expanding their camera lineup with something like the OM3 was a really good decision, in my opinion. It broadens their base of consumers that would be buying into the OM systems and introduce them to the world of lenses and all of that stuff, that Micro Four Thirds has to offer. So I really like the OM3. I think I would call it a pinnacle camera, just like the Pen F to me was their pinnacle camera. But all of the Mark IIs, EM5, Mark II, EM10 Mark II, EM1 Mark II, the pinnacle of Olympus. The Pen F, I think, is very similar to the OM3 in the sense that these are cameras that really, I think, are going to expand their customer base and introduce them to the other systems. But I don't know if they're doing enough right now overall, because it's not enough, right? Because it feels like every other camera system is offering, spitting a camera out every week. I mean, it's just crazy. Uh, but I wish they had the ability to introduce cameras at a faster pace with more innovation than they are currently. Because it's been what, 4 years now, or three? It's been 3 years at least, and in 3 years, we really only have the OM3 out of that because the TG7 is pretty much the same thing. The OM1 and OM1 Mark II, the OM1 was basically in the can anyway from Olympus, and then OM1 Mark II was a nice update. I'll give them that, but not super, right? Not like a whole new thing. So they need to Hopefully the Mark III, the OM1 Mark III will be a pinnacle camera for OM Systems. OM Systems needs a pinnacle camera. I would call the Pen F and the OM3 kind of like halo cameras. I mean, these terms are very subjective, but to me these are terrific cameras, but they're not pinnacle. Like they're not as critical as say the OM1 was when OM System took over. But it's not quite the camera. It's not quite enough. It's not quite enough. I think OM Systems still can do a lot more. I think they can do a lot more. And I'm looking forward to the Mark III. Hopefully, the OM1 Mark III. We'll give it another year or two to start hearing rumors about it, and that might be my next camera. But I don't see the OM5 Mark II being my next, because it just doesn't offer anything that I can't do already. And I've used Live Comp for fireworks, just a little though. Yeah, I typically use just you know depends on the fireworks, but most of the fireworks that I've been to for the last several years, it's only a 2 to 4 second exposure. So using live comp is a little awkward. So what I do is I set up an intervalometer and a 2 or 3 second uh, shutter time, and just let the camera run by itself. And Barry says, thinking of upgrading the OM5 to the OM5 from my EM10 Mark III, as I'm not contracting on bird photography. There's some very good prices for the body only here in UK. So the OM5 is going to give you some nice pro capture and frame rates, right, for your shutter. Certainly way better than the EM10 Mark III. So that's a huge upgrade. And if your budget is for an OM5, it's definitely worth every penny, right? If you want to get into birding. I would say if you want to see another leap forward, though, you need to get an OM1. You should be able to get an OM1 for just a few $100s more than OM5. And I'm talking about the Mark One. That would be a substantial upgrade again from an OM5 to an OM1. If that's not in your budget, then OM5, I have no trouble recommending for what you're talking about for the money. It's a huge update to the M10 Mark III, no question. Uh, Specifically for the autofocus, you now have phase detect autofocus, which is better for sports action. And then the shutter, the frame rates, and the pro capture. These two things really will make a huge difference in your birding. You just have to use like the center point or 5 point box in the middle and be able to get good at tracking the birds yourself. If you're talking about bird on a stick, then I don't know if it's worth updating to an OM5 because OM10 Mark III could do bird on a stick, no problem. Uh, but an OM5 will definitely up your game and make birding a lot easier for birds in flight and anything that's moving. You just have to get good at tracking by eye. And fortunately, and that's where the OM1 is a big update because it has the bird detect. And now I don't have to worry about trying to get it within a single point or 5 point box. I can just use the entire frame. And if I can get the bird in the frame, the camera's going to focus on it. So it's made a huge difference for me having that bird detect. But if I had to, I could get by with just using a single point or 5 point to track the birds and do it by eye. But it's just nice the OM1 has bird tracking. So if I can get the bird in the frame, then it'll focus. And then, of course, it has the faster shutter frame rates and things and bigger buffer. I'm not sure what the buffer is on the OM5, but you'll have to manage that. So definitely get a UHS2. You want to get a V60 UHS-2 card. And the OM5, use a 5-point, set your shutter speed to 1/2000th, 1/4000th, and combine that with either SH2. Do they call it SH2 on the OM5? But whatever it is that gets you 25 frames per second with continuous autofocus, and you're all set. Much better than the M10 Mark III. Yeah, 120 frames per second. It's crazy. Like I said, I've used it. I've used it. I think I showed this before, but I'll just pull it up. I'll put a link to it. I did a video. Where's the link? You guys can watch this later, or you can watch it now. That's my golf video. But I used a lot of 120 frame per second. It's this video here. God, 3 years ago? Man, I can't believe that was 3 years ago. But yeah, this is all 120 frame per second. So let me turn the sound off. But actually come to think of it, I didn't use Pro Capture for this. I would just wait for the golfer to start to, swing back, and that's when I push the shutter button. So, not all of these, this was 3 years ago when I just got my OM1 and a 75 1.8. And I did a little bit of, panning and cropping to make the video a little more interesting, zooming in and out with the video. I'm trying to see, there was one shot that was really good. If I can get, here's a wider shot. Yeah, anyway, what's nice is you can, you can use any lens at 120 frames per second because it doesn't have to autofocus. So that's why I was able to use the 75 1.8, which is not a pro lens. And so yeah, it was cool. It was cool to use all that to do that. But that was the last time I've used it for that. Gosh, I can't believe it's been 3 years. So Eric says I'm about to get a 9K loan to fix up my car, but man, I had to get a medium formatted. So which medium format are you thinking about? Like a GFX or a Hasselblad? The 907? That would be cool. Uh, but yeah, I was looking at some 907s. Let's see. So, and I was trying to see what I could get for my Sony, but like a GFX 100, holy crap, 7,000. How about a Hasselblad H4 B-60? Hey, you can get one of these. Uh, man, 2,700 bucks, and this is the HD 4040. So it's a 40 megapixel, 4,000 shutter count. It's hardly been used. And then you add a lens to it. Let's see. Did I have an H lens? Hasselblad H lens. See, the lenses are like in the mid hundreds here. So you can get this 80 f 2.8, $639. The lenses have a shutter count on them also because they're leaf shutter lenses. The shutter is actually built into the lens. But yeah, this would be an amazing system. But yeah, what camera are you talking about, Eric? Maybe a GFX 50S2, a GFX 100S, like the Mark One, not the Mark II. I just can't see myself. I picked up one of those cameras at the camera store at the last event, and I just couldn't believe how big those cameras were. You know, because they had the GFX 100 there, and that's a really actually not a big camera at all. So when I picked up the GFX, uh, 50 and GFX 100, I was like, man, and then the lenses that go on them, I was like, holy crap, these are huge. So why would I get a 50 megapixel medium format at, if I spend $3,000 on a 50 megapixel GFX and then another $1,000 for a lens, so I'm out like 4 grand when I'm really pretty happy if I want high res, my Sony will do it, right? Natively, 60 megapixel. And I have a really nice lens for it that I like. I should get one more lens for it, but I don't know if I want to invest in that system. I basically have three I basically have 3 or 4 lenses for it. I have the kit lens, the 28 to 60, the 55 1.8, and those are the only 2 lenses I bought, right? Then I have the 75 f2, which they sent me for free, and I have an 85 1.8, but I'm not gonna keep that. It's just too big and heavy. Compare the 75 f2 for Sony by TT Artisans is a much smaller, lighter lens. It's only like 300 grams. The 85 1.8 is like 500 grams, and it's big. So I'll probably just keep the 75, maybe. I might get rid of that too. I like the 75. It's a much smaller lens. It's more similar to my 55. But the 55 Zeiss is an awesome lens, and that little 28 to 60 kit lens for the Sony is really good too. And it makes for a relatively small, lightweight system, but it's still bulky. So I don't like to take it. I'd rather take out my my OM3. I don't know if you're still here, Marco, but Marco sent me this lens. He saw that I broke my 12 to 32, so he sent me this 12 to 32. He had an extra one, I guess. I really appreciate that. And it works great, you know. It's not small. You take this 12 to 32 out with your OM3, and you got a great little street camera. And a few of you have talked about that you got the grip, the same grip that I did. God, the tariffs I think on these are kind of high now. So these might be really expensive, but I got this just before the tariff, so I only paid like $50 or something for this grip. And it makes a big difference in the handling. I can now hand it. I don't generally do that. I normally do this. But the big deal is like when you're just kind of walking around, you can hold the camera like this, no problem. You don't have to put a death grip on it. This is very easy to carry now. So I think of the handle more as easier way to carry the camera than it is to hold and use it. Because when I'm holding it, I'm always holding it like this, right? Of course, as most of us do, I'm sure. Uh, but yeah, I took a few shots with it yesterday, and it's working great. Just just a picture of Ellie. She's just passed out on the sofa. Ooh, so you're thinking about a GFX 100, huh? Interesting. Let me think about that for a minute. I've been doing mostly bracketing with flash, and I've gotten amazing images with the OM1 and 90 Mac. Yeah. Oh man. Uh, I may have to get that 90 macro here later this year. Hopefully, I can find a good deal on it. I'm loving my 60 macro, no question. But as I get into this macro photography, I'm wanting that 90 macro more and more. But I just could not budget it at the time. Of course, I wish I did now. But the GFX 100S, so that's their 100 megapixels. So some of the things that kind of discourage me from that camera is, everyone says the autofocus is super slow. It's not like you're going to get even 4 or 5 frames per second, so you can't do it really. Continuous shooting is pretty much out of the question. And then the size and weight of it and the cost, right? It's a great deal for medium format, but I don't know. I just it's basically a landscape camera, right? It's perfectly fine for landscape, but I can't think of too many other use cases for it. I would never take it out birding. I wouldn't take it out for street. And if I was doing portraits on a regular basis, I probably wouldn't use it for that either because it's such a slow camera. I do a lot of continuous autofocus, continuous shutter when I'm doing events and portraits, and the camera would just be too slow for even that. Uh, so I'm talking strictly from my point of view, right? And how many landscape pictures do you really see in my portfolio? Hardly any. Uh, and the drop for, like I said, even if I went with the 50, the GFX 50S Mark II, we're still talking about 4 grand to get the body and a lens on the used market, and it's not going to outperform my Sony. It will barely outperform my OM system cameras with the high res shot mode. You know, uh, well, no, it'll probably do a lot better. High res shot mode's a little bit overhyped. You do get more detail, but you have to have top tier glass to really see it. When I use the high res shot mode with a lot of my other lenses, I don't see a huge enough difference for me to want to use it all the time. I use it for reducing noise and getting a little bit extra detail and contrast. But an 80 megapixel high res shot mode is not the same as a 60 megapixel native sensor. It's just not. Um, but a 50 megapixel medium format, do I really need to push and pull? Because we'll get what, 14 or 16-bit files? It's probably 14-bit just in a 16-bit container. I don't think I even need that much dynamic range. If I start pushing the limits of the dynamic range in a single shot, I'm going to bracket and do exposure blending after. So I mean, I don't mean to. I would say get your car fixed. I would not put that money on a camera, not a medium format, not for me anyway. Not to say that I won't probably try to get, like, I've been looking at that Hasselblad H4 40 or maybe the 31, just for putzing around, but it's still a little bit too pricey. It's a little bit too pricey, because I'm looking at it from a enthusiast perspective, not for any kind of professional work. Because I don't do anything professionally that requires a medium format camera. I don't sell any product photography or my still life or anything like that. I don't sell my prints really. I sell my time to go do events and things. Yeah, you just know you want one, right? Well, I'm glad I mean, if you think you'll enjoy it and use it, just get it. But for me, from my perspective, those were the things that kind of give me pause was it's not going to do anything but landscape for me. And I don't do a lot of landscape. If I was out of landscape, if I was doing landscape, like if I was Thomas Heaton, yeah, I'd be out there with my X100, my Hasselblad X1D Explorer, whatever, 100 megapixel camera. I would love to do that. And I would love that camera for that. But I'm not. I'm not Thomas Heaton, right? I'm Rob. I do a few events, I do a few properties, and then I do uh, a little birding, right, and macro. And that's where the OM system and Micro Four Third cameras just are perfect, right? Do a little bit of street photography. I mean, these cameras do it all and do all of those things very well. And I can't, and Robin Wong is in the same boat. You know, his Micro Four Third system does everything he needs it to do, both on a phototherapy session and also for his professional work. And we only dabble in these other cameras because we love gear. Or, well, I'm not going to speak for Robin, but I love gear, right? I love gear, and I have bad gas. But if I had to have only one camera right now, it would be the OM3, hands down, because that camera would do. That's tough though. For my personal stuff, it would be the OM3. For my professional work, it'd have to be the OM1 as my only camera. It used to be my only camera would be the Pen F, right? But the dual card slot does come in handy. It's a really good workflow to have dual card slots. Never mind that the security or peace of mind of having a backup. But once you have a backup workflow, a dual card slot workflow is ideal. Maybe product photography, but that is very much a professional niche. Yeah. Yeah, like Tin House Studios, right? Yeah, I'm not a landscape photographer either. Hasselblad sounds more what I'd enjoy out of it, especially street. I don't know how the Hasselblad is that much different than the GFX, to be honest. The Hasselblad, I'm thinking for like studio top-down photography, like flat lay photography, and I don't know, maybe some. But yeah, I'm still looking at $3,000 because I saw an H4D with lens for 3,000 on eBay. Still looking at 3 grand. And then I would take a few pictures with it. I'd be like, yeah, that's nice. But wow, $3,000 for 3 pictures. What am I going to do? Take it out to start doing some landscape? I don't know. But yeah, if this had dual card slots, this would definitely be my only camera for work and play. And I have used this for event photography. So I do use it for work, and it's great for that. I didn't show you any. Let me show you some pictures I took this week. This was a senior center dance rehearsal. Uh, so let's see, they're called Helping Hearts Through the Arts. So this was just their dance rehearsal. So that's the dancers there, and Yep, I have all the exit data here. I'll talk about this if it makes any sense. But I was kind of all over the place with my settings. Um, this is their dance instructor, and they were just practicing, you know. But you can see I'm at like 1/500th of a second, ISO 2000, and then I just use noise reduction. This is ISO 2500, and these images are fine at ISO 2000. Uh, I use my Sony here. Where are my OM3 pictures? Here's an OM3. I was testing out the lens. You know the lens review that I just posted for the 85 millimeters? That's why it was using my Sony. But here's like an OM3 shot, ISO 5000. Uh, yeah, it's fine. That's the Sony. Here's a Sony shot. Sony, yeah, I was doing a lot of Sony shots. Okay, here's an OM3 shot, ISO 3200. There's a ton of glare coming in on the left side, and you can see me over here taking a shot. And then I did a couple of this is his sister. She's really nice. Here I used OM3 with flash. I had one light set up, and this also the OM3 ISO 8000. Again, I just used noise reduction, and then I used AI to add the background. Yeah, these backgrounds are AI generated. This is ISO 8000, ISO 10,000. You know, ISO 800. I use flash here. This is the Sony, and ISO 10,000, 3200. So ISO 8000. But yeah, anyway, you get the idea. All the backgrounds were AI generated. That's why they're all different. But that was a lot of fun. That's one of the things I did this week. Uh, so I was testing out that new lens they sent me. So I have a review on the 85 millimeter. Lens is okay. It worked well. Uh, but otherwise, yeah, I would just use my OM3 for every shot. And I have no problem shooting ISO 10,000 at events if I need to. It works fine. Okay, and I'll just meet you at Arlington District Camera whenever I purchase one. You can be my translator in their purchasing one, so I don't sound like a dumbass. They know what they're doing over there, and they're very helpful. Are you going? Hey, are you going next week to their? I'll be at that event next week. They're doing on Saturday. I don't know what time I'm going to go, but District Camera has an event next week, so go to districtcamera.com. I'll be there. And Birds for Life says biggest plus for medium format besides the resolution is the immense dynamic range. You can underexpose by multiple stops and still get Well, I would imagine because you got huge pixels, right? And again, it's like I think for landscape that would be awesome because landscapes can have a wide dynamic range, right? Especially like sunsets, sunrises. Having that done, you can expose for the sun and then basically pull up the shadows. Right, you can get it all done in one shot. For me, I would probably bracket either way, whether I was using medium format or my OM3. I always bracket sunrise, sunset, uh, if I'm trying to get everything in the shot. And Jeff is here. Hey, happy Father's Day. And Wayne is in. Good morning, Wayne. Um, but yeah, that's what I've been up to. And so I did that event. And I know I did some other stuff. I had to do that lens review. I'm gonna go back to using or developing my preset recipe or whatever for the OM3. I have a film recipe I'm working on. Maybe I can show you. I don't think I showed a lot of those pictures last week. I might have a few more that I've updated. Let me check. But I'm coming up with a film recipe for the OM3, another one. I'm waiting for OM Workspace to load up. So I'm calling it Chrome FX. Hold on. Let me find a good example. This balloon's a good example. So I'm going to reset this to so this is the default colors straight out of camera. And if I apply my Chrome preset, and let's put these side by side. Uh, yeah, so you can see it's a little bit warmer. The blues are a little more desaturated. But yeah, that's a before and after shot. It probably doesn't show too well on the stream. Let me pick another one, but you can really see it in the grass, how the grass is kind of more yellow down in here. Let's try a different shot. Yep, that's another Chrome FX shot. How about this one? No, these are not good examples. This one might be. But you'll see. Well, I'm working on it. I those are not good examples. I did notice on skin tones. Let me look at this one. Yeah, this is a good example. This is a good example of a before and after. So the straight out of camera was a little bit weak, but then after I applied my preset, let me just double check. Let me reset it, and then yeah, if I apply my preset, okay. So I did add a little bit of exposure comp, but I really like what it does for the skin tone. So if you take pictures of people, it really makes the skin tones look really nice because you can see over here it's it's a little plain. Over here, it's much warmer, the skin tones. And I think I did it for this one too. Let me apply. Yeah, this is nice. This is the straight out of camera. This is with my preset applied. And you can see all the other tones up in here. So yeah, I'm working on this new recipe that, so that you can do this in camera. But I can do everything in workspace and tweak. And then I put those settings in camera, then I go out and take some more test shots and tweak a little more. But it's getting there. It's getting there. Where I'm gonna have a hopefully it'll be a really nice, very film-like preset. And Contrail is here. Happy Father's Day. And Birds for Life says a 300 f4 is probably my next Micro Four Third lens. I hear it's the sharpest of their long telephotos. It's definitely, I think it's indistinguishable from what I've heard from their 150 to 400. I haven't heard anybody say one bad thing about the 300 f4. and you certainly won't hear anything bad from me. It is an awesome lens. You should definitely get it. You can get them used for about 1,800 to 2,000. Last time I looked, which was about a month ago, but uh, if you can get one brand new, all the better. Definitely get it. If you're using anything else, a 100 to 400, a 150 to 600, 75 to 300, no matter what lens you're using now, you're going to see a marked improvement in the sharpness of your images and how quickly you can capture the images. The autofocusing, the image stabilization, it's amazing. So it's not just in the sharpness, but the autofocusing motors are so fast. It goes from point A to point B like in a blink. Because I had an argument with a friend that states, I never use presets, I just edit in Lightroom. Any change you do in Lightroom is no different than a preset. Masking, etc., is the same as a preset. Um, well, I don't. Let me continue here. Is it still altering what the original photo and what you actually saw in person to an image that didn't exist when taken? So I'm not sure what the argument is. Like, is your friend saying don't bother with presets, just make all the changes in post? I mean, that's what I do a lot. And it's still altering what the original photo and what you actually saw in person to an image that didn't exist when taken. Yes. I don't see a problem with that. These both these statements are not, one or the other. They're both true. Uh, so I don't know what the argument is because what you see with your own eye almost never does the camera capture that exactly. But when it does capture it, it's going to apply uh, its own color science, its own field of view, its own depth of field. I mean, there's so many ways a camera's capture of an image is different than what you see with your human eye. When if we're talking about general photography, now if we're talking about colors in general, like applying a preset like I'm talking about, where it's kind of shifting things a little warmer, desaturating the blues, and then reducing the sharpening effects, things like that. Uh, that's all a creative process. That has nothing to do with, say, photography. This is more of a creative or artistic approach to photography and editing. And some people just want to do that in camera. Why go through the workflow of uploading it into Lightroom and then doing all the editing and then putting it on Instagram when if you can create a preset that you like in camera, then you've eliminated that step of post processing, right? So real life versus art. Yeah, exactly. So I decided to save money on my gym membership and oh, cool. That's awesome. That is a really cool lens. I mean, the reach is just unbelievable. I don't use presets myself, but I can see the convenience where it basically gives you a creative starting point. Yeah. It's just about having fun and going out there and experimenting, right? That's part of the joy of photography is experimenting. And if you want to experiment with colors and tone curves and whatever else, why not? What's the big deal? And presets can provide a consistent look. Yep. You just have to be in the same lighting and same, conditions because white balance is critical a lot of times to a preset, right? So you're going to use auto white balance or you're going to fix the white balance. And that can have a significant impact on the preset for consistency. Just FYI, for people that are thinking about or experimenting with their own presets, really seriously consider white balance is part of that equation, and shifting the white balance. That's a critical part of the presets. And Robert's here. Hey, good morning, Robert. Good to see you. Happy Father's Day, by the way. We were just talking about cameras and stuff. So yeah, I'm getting old. I know I'm a lot younger than many of you here, but this sucks getting old. Going to the doctor for things that I never had to when I was younger. Nothing serious, just getting old type stuff, right? Oh, it sucks when they tell you, well, that's just how it is. I'm like, are you serious? I gotta live like this the rest of my life? Says, yeah, that's not going away. Come on, man. Oh, unbelievable. And Eric says it was a dumb argument, but I guess what her friend angle was that a preset is a cop out. I always, unless macro shot, start my image with certain presets and then edit after. Well, yeah, for example, let's say your preset is just black and white. It it can make a big difference seeing the image in the field in a way that is very similar to how you're going to edit it later, right? So if I'm working on my film preset, which is a little bit warmer, desaturate the blues, shift the white balance, a little magenta, yada, yada, yada. There's about 20 different things I did for this preset. And I take a picture. I'll only use those images, uh, to upload to Instagram or something if they're good enough. And I don't have to do any post processing. But my intent is usually the preset's kind of a starting point, right? So I'm going for this certain look. I'll just use the preset to kind of visualize what it's going to look like when I actually go back to edit it. So a lot of people use presets that way. Like monochrome is a good example. A lot of people use a monochrome preset so they can visualize the image in black and white before they go back into post processing and actually process it. I was actually looking at the 150 to 600 because the magnification is 0.35x, which is amazing for really macro, one of my favorite niche genres of photography, plus the amazing reach. Okay. Yeah, 0.35x, that's pretty good. Uh, I didn't know it had that much magnification. That's pretty good. So my 23-year-old twin surprised me with some new baseball caps, but haven't given me the 150 to 400 yet. Yeah, man. That is one of my regrets is never becoming a father, but it's too late for me now. But I think if I could do my younger days over again, I would have had kids, but it's too late now. Lots of wildlife refugees with waterfowl around here. Use the car as a blind. I'm using the 150 to 600 and 1.4 teleconverter. Yep. Like if I ever go back to Bombay Hook, yeah, Bombay Hook, a 150 to 600 would be nice, you know, for that. I just don't know if I want to spend 2 grand because I probably will not use that lens that much. I mean, the lens is pretty sharp. It's not as sharp as the 300, but it's a 600 millimeter. I don't know. Or I just wait till the birds get closer or don't bother taking the shot, right? Because I use the 1.4x teleconverter, but it's not going to hold a candle in terms of magnification that the 150 to 600 can do. Says, I don't like all of his material, but Louis C.K. did a great bit on aging. He basically echoed your sentiment about going to the doc and having them shrug off and say, well, you're just going to, yeah, Louis C.K. cracks me up sometimes too. But yeah, it's just like, seriously, I never had this before in my entire life. Now I just got to live with it. Ugh. And now I understand why my uncle had all of these different ointments and creams and vitamins. I mean, he passed away about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now. But his whole closet was just full of old man stuff. Ugh. So what to look for is contrast that makes a good black and white photo. Um, depends. I have some low contrast photos that I really like. You know, I tend to lean towards the very punchy, contrasty images when I do black and white, but I've done a couple of low contrast ones. Let me see if I can find one that I really liked. It's all subjective, right? All right. What's wrong with Flickr today? Ah, Flickr's not working. I can't pull up my page. Let me try one more time. Okay, these are the black and white photos I've posted so far. You can see a lot of these are very, very punchy. But I think some of my more recent ones, I have some low contrast ones somewhere. That's one of my double exposures. It sucks. Yeah, this one's pretty low contrast. I really like this photo. I'm trying to see if I posted any other low contrast images. This one's pretty low contrast. That's a high contrast. Let's see. Ah, it's not too many more here, but I've done a few. I just didn't post them. I'm never going to find them now. But let's go back to this one. Uh, but yeah, this is one of my favorite low contrast images that I've taken. And I've done a few more like this where it's very, very low contrast. But I do tend to do a lot of the high contrast ones too. And John Steiner says, I set the white balance to 5600 and adjust the color presets on the OM3. Do you use multiple fixed white balance values? Most of my photography is cityscape. So if I'm going for the current preset that I'm working on is trying to give a filmic look, which, old film tends to be kind of yellow. So I'm actually experimenting between ISO 6 or white balance 6000 and 7200. These are the two white balances I'm looking at fixing, and then shifting it a little bit magenta and green to get sort of a chromy look and desaturate the blues. Uh, however, for my other preset, I do fix the white balance to 5600, just regular daylight. And I found that to be that to be best. So yeah, I do adjust I do set the fix the white balance most of the time if I'm making a preset. And I think that gives the most if you're going for a filmic type look, right? If you're not going for a filmic look, if you're going for more of a whatever, something else where the you don't want it to be kind of yellow or cold, you know, because if you want a cooler image, you would just shift the white balance to say 3000. So it really depends, but yeah, for presets, I typically set the white balance. Oh, happy Father's Day, Tarko. Good to see you. And Wayne says, I have a friend that had three sons, started about 62 years. God bless him. I uh I can't start, you know, because if I start now, I'll be in my 70s when my kids are in high school, and I may not survive when they go through college. So I can't do it. How can I be in retirement and then put kids through college? I mean, if you have the money already, then sure, why not? But there's no way. There's no way. But that is one of my regrets is uh I take care, I take care of my mom now, but I was taking care of my uncle, my dad, and my mom for the on and off for the last 10 years, right? And things would be a lot harder if I wasn't here, right? If they didn't have kids, meaning me. So that's one of the things I don't look forward to is when I get older, I don't have any kids to help take care of me or do things for me, right? But that's not why I think about having kids. I miss the opportunity to raise kids, which is a huge part of life, right? Yeah, Ellie appreciates it. Ellie and I are good buddies. And then for the OM5 Mark II, I'm looking for the new menus, USB-C, and some additional. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. It doesn't look like it from the leak specs. It looks like it's going to be the. It looks like it's going to be a re-release of the OM5 Mark I in just some new colors and maybe a couple of tweaks. I don't know. And picking up a 24 to 85 AFS Nikon mount lens today for really good price. That's a good deal. Uh, did you get the VR version? The VR version is best. They have a non-VR of that, but the VR is a little better. But either lens is excellent. But I got the VR version. If we're talking about the Nikon F mount, I didn't really look that close. Yeah, F mount. Yeah, so the F mount lens, yeah, that 24 to 85 is an awesome lens. And Eric says, I would never recommend having kids after 40. Granted, they're a blessing, but my youngest daughter was far harder in the first 3 years to complete than any child previously. Wow. How many kids do you have, Eric? Man, we'll have robots to help us out. Yeah, baby. Bring on the AR. Oh, you got the VR version. Awesome. That's a great deal. I think I paid $180 US for mine, which I thought was a great deal. But I had to buy the lens separately, which I paid like $15 for. But yeah, I you make me want to go out and shoot my DF today, my Nikon DF. It's just hard when I got my OM3 right here. But let me get my DF out, my other vintage camera. So this is the 24 to 85 VR lens, right? On a Nikon DF. And of course, I got my polarizer on here, but little manual focus switch. It's zooms, it extends out, but it doesn't extend out very far, right? Just a little bit. And here's the OM3 next to my DF. It's quite a bit of difference, right? Because everyone says, "Oh yeah, the full frame bodies are uh, small now. You don't need to buy micro four thirds." But I'm like, you got to buy lens. I mean, this is why people went to mirrorless initially, because DSLRs and the DF is like one of the smallest DSLRs you can get. Full frame DSLRs, and just a huge difference between these two. But yeah, this lens is amazing. You will be very, very happy with it. Maybe I'll go out and shoot with this. And I need to change the battery. But this is a terrific camera. It's held its value pretty well, surprisingly. Wonder what a DF goes for these days. Nikon DF. Holy crap. $21.99 for a refurbished one. Here's a used one at MPB, $12.39, and this is not even in the nicest shape as mine. It's got marks on it. Mine is like mint. How about, oh, here's a used one. Why is this so cheap? Item is rated in poor condition, suggests a very rough appearance. It looks okay. What's the problem? Sensor looks fine. Oh, it's beat up on the, okay. See, the shot's overexposed slightly, so it's hard to see the little scratches. Yeah, look down here. Wow. Yeah, this thing's been beat up. But what's the shutter count? Not that it matters now. 97,000. Yeah, don't buy that one. It's a little too beat up. Here's a nice one. If you want silver. Gosh, the bottom of this is jacked up. And this is from Japan, so I'd have to pay 24% or whatever on top of that. Anyhow, this Nikon DF is holding its value. I haven't even looked at mine that close. Yeah, mine is clean, man. Look at that. No scratches at all. I could probably get 1,300 for this. Easy. Not a scratch. Little dusty. I lost the eyepiece, but maybe I missed it, but I'm curious what everything's about the Yashica FXD Kickstarter. Well, I hadn't heard about that. We'll look at that in a second. So you have one daughter and three grandkids. Awesome. Congratulations. With my partner combined kids, one plus there's 7 kids in the house. Wow. I look and feel much older than 47. Very, wow. Wow. I'm surprised you got any money for cameras at all. And then Darga says, I have the Z lenses for my Z6. I have the 40, the 28, the 24 to 70. Those are all great lenses. And I'm not a fan of the 40 f2, but I guess it's all right. To be fair, I only used it once on a demo, and I was like, "Eh." The Nikon ZF appeals to me slightly. It does appeal to me a little bit, the retro style. But then I'm like, "I have this. Why would I go out with a DF?" I don't know. But I think, Darko, you have a don't you have the Z50 Mark II? Or are you shooting a full frame Nikon? So what's the Yashica DF or FXD? Yashica FXD. Hmm. Yeah, Yashica FXD refers to a new series of cameras that blend the aesthetics of film with the convenience of digital. So they have a video? So what is this? It had a winder on it? This is weird. Hold on. The heck was that? So it has a winder, but it's a digital camera. So this is a little bit like that Fuji. And they got film simulations. Okay. All right, let's look at another shot. So what does this winder do other than, and this is what bothered me about, so golden 80s. So it has multiple presets built in. Interesting. So is it a fixed lens camera? Fixed, I don't know anything about this camera. The Sheikah FXD. There's a lot of film cameras. It's an article from Petapixel. Are there any other videos on this camera? Yashica FXD Vintage. So somebody's done a video on it. There's some specs. So 13 megapixel sensor is the IMX458. Optical zoom 3x. So the focal length is what? 3.4. So this is a 1/2.3 sensor? Because look at the range of the lens. This is a tiny sensor then. Looking at the Yeah, IMX458, that's gotta be a 1/2.3. Oh, it's a 1/3, it's even smaller. Alright, so, yeah, that is a tiny, tiny sensor. It's even smaller than, like, what's in a TG5 or TG7. It's a 1/1 it's a 1/3. Wow. So, yeah, that I don't know. If it sells for under $100, I might buy it, but I wouldn't pay more than that for it. Oh, so you have a Z6. Okay, I forgot about the D6. Yeah, you should get the ZF, man. Trade your Z6 in and get the ZF. And John says, I'm going to baptism today as guest, going to photograph and video in a chapel today with the OM3 set up for easy switching using photo video. Should be fun. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, the camera looks really cool. What's the Kickstarter? How much are they going to ask for this? Two cameras will ship 50 megapixel. All right, so I'm just going through the petapixel. So they have one here that's closer to micro four thirds. Well, closer to a 1 inch sensor. The FXD 300 is available for $339. So it's going to be MSRP. And FXD is going to be 239. All right, so I don't know. I guess that's not terrible, actually. All right, so I think they're really cool looking cameras. They got to be all plastic at that price point. So I would be careful of that winder. Maybe the winder is metal, but it's going to be plastic gears, right? It might be a fun camera at those prices. I kind of jumped the gun when I said $100, but 339, 549 retail. 549 is a bit high. I think 339. Looking at the details here, that doesn't look bad. And what are the dimensions? Oh, okay, interesting. Would I pay 339 for a 1 over 1.5 sensor and that styling? I'd have to hold the camera, but I'm going to assume it's all plastic. What other settings does it have? Does it have like a mode dial so you can shoot in full manual, or is it just all about the presets? Apex doesn't say crap about that. It's just a bunch of presets. Sorry, I'm going through their Kickstarter page. Hmm. And they don't really say much here either. Okay, so the same. This is forget it. It's going to be JPEG only. It looks like too, which is fine. But I don't know. All I can say is, if it's anything like the Fujifilm X half camera, it's. There's no way I'm going to buy that. The X half is like way too expensive. And then this Yashica is going to be a plasticky but retro looking camera. So It might make it like a nice gift for someone. Like if I got it as a gift, I'd really like it, but I don't think I would spend my own money on it. Let's just kind of leave it at that. But what do you guys think? I don't know. What do you guys think? What am I missing? There's a mode that will lock the shutter until you crank it. Oh, okay. And the half frame Fuji X digital is a cool idea, but definitely not for me. Yeah. Like I said, the idea is interesting, but they want $800 or something for that camera. I'm like, are you kidding me? 800? There's no way. I'd rather get like an OM5 Mark I for 899. Way better camera. Then I'd have to buy a lens, so we're really talking about 1200. If you get the 12 to 45, but for 1200 bucks, I'd much rather have an OM5 than an X Fuji X have. So there's a video saying the Yashica is a scam. Okay. And then EJ says, becoming dad is the best thing I ever did. Getting into photography is a distant second. Yeah. I envy you. I envy you, EJ. Never had kids. Luckily, at least I have nephews, right? That's the closest thing. It's not the same though, right? Uh, there are 3 models, and yeah, it's quirky, but sounds like it could be fun. Yeah, like I said, I think if someone got me that as a gift or Yashica wants to send me one to review, I would probably enjoy it. But I don't know if I would drop three to $500 on one for my own money. And then Monte Salanto did a recent humorous video on what features Fuji X should introduce to bring back a more realistic film. I've been meaning to watch that, but I haven't caught it yet because I don't, the X half doesn't interest me at all. So what can they do to make it better? I already have my own ideas, but I've been meaning to watch Maddie's video. I always like to watch Maddie and Peter. I watch the usual suspects, just like everyone, right? And Jew is here. Happy Father's Day. Good to see you. And there's a video saying that Sheikah is a scam. Well, I hope the Kickstarter is not a scam, but if uh yeah, I think the idea of Kickstarters is great, but I'll just wait until it's on the shelf or I can order it off one of the online websites like B&H or Amazon. I'm not going to order through a Kickstarter. Yeah, I just can't do it. You just never know. And a lot of people do it and they're fine, but there's been a few where yeah, it never came to be and you're just out, right? Which is unfortunate for everyone involved, for the people that initially started the Kickstarter. They really wanted to introduce an innovative product, and then the people that invested into it. It's just too bad for everyone involved that it didn't get off the ground. I can't cite any specific examples, but I remember watching some videos about Kickstarters that just never materialized, and they weren't necessarily scams, right? They were just it just didn't work out. So I don't want to I don't want to put any shade on a camera just because it's on a Kickstarter. Doesn't mean anything. Could be a fantastic camera, but uh, I can wait. I can wait. If there was a Kickstarter that I wanted to support, I haven't seen it yet. For me personally, because I have everything I need. Right. Okay. So it's pretty quiet, guys. You have any other questions or want to talk about anything else? The Yashica thing was pretty interesting. At some point, I need to run to Union Station in DC for work. I hope everything has died down going, oh, yeah, they had the big parade yesterday. Oh, yeah, too bad I missed that. They had a big military parade yesterday. And then there's all kinds of other events going on related to um, other stuff that I'm not interested in. But I'm mostly I would have liked to go into the parade, but I just don't like going in DC in general because there's always things going on there, people gathering for different reasons. Uh, that just make things it makes it hard to get around. You have to take the metro, and then and I've never taken a metro in my life, so I wouldn't even know how to do that. But yeah, it just gets complicated when there's too many people. I'd rather go out to the mountains in solitude, like kung fu, and just go around and just go into the small village every now and then, take a few pictures. Maybe one day that'll be my retirement plate. So mode dial that allows you to switch between various digital shooting modes such as manual and program. Okay. So it's got some potential. I mean, the 1/3 sensor doesn't interest me, but the 1/1.5, that's getting a little more decent, right? Uh, that's a decent size sensor for what that camera's supposed to be. And if you have like at least manual mode and you have all the film simulations, if you want to do that, and if it shoots raw, then I might think about 500 bucks. So if it shoots raw, the 1/1.5 sensor, and it has a manual mode or aperture mode would be better for me. But man, you really wouldn't need aperture mode with such a tiny sensor. But yeah, and it has a manual mode, and it has that retro styling. It's okay if it's plastic. It has to be. I would be okay with 500 bucks actually. But it has to do all of those three things. Those are key. Any one of those would be a deal breaker, or I wouldn't drop $500. If it doesn't shoot raw, not happening. Not dropping 500 bucks. That's number one. If it doesn't have any controls like manual mode, that would be another deal breaker for me. And then what was the other thing I mentioned? I can't remember. But yeah, that's interesting. Anyone head up to New York for the build? No, I'm not going to make it. But yeah, hey Marco, you should if you have time, you should I don't know if you can go live on your own channel, but you should definitely go live if you can. Or you can just join me on my live stream if you want, just let me know. And while you're up there, and we can because I think the OM5 is going to be there, right? Plus whatever else is going on in the camera industry. Rob, do you lay Christmas wreaths in Arlington Cemetery? I think you mentioned your pops is buried there. No, I do not. I've not been to Arlington Cemetery since my dad's funeral. I still not over it that he's gone. It still gets me. I can't even I'm not going to make it to his. I may not ever go. Actually, I might have to go because they're going to put my mom right next to him. So that'll be the next time I go, and that's going to be horrible. I don't know. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't go to my dad's gravesite there. It's just too hard. I'm not good at funerals and weddings. I'm a big crying baby. I voted one of the rallies, kind of tough. They all start to look the same. Yeah, I get that. And Flatcap says, selling my Sony kit, the OM3 and my MFT kit is very pleasing, easy to get results. Live and learn. Awesome. I wish I could just get down to one camera and lens set, group of lenses, but I can't. If I had to, it would be the OM3. We'll just leave it at that. Not Sony IMX458 sensor on entry level Yashica is the same sensor used in cell phones and tablets according to specs. Not a good thing. Yeah, it's a 1/3, 1/3.0, and that's tiny. The 1/1.56, that's a decent size sensor. It's not quite 1 inch size, but it's somewhere between 1 inch and the other thing. It says my OM3 manual focus and video 240 FPS is better than Sony AF. Really? The 12-100 Pro manual focus ring is so easy and smooth to use. Cool. OM3 manual focus video 240 frames per second is. I didn't know I could do 240. I hardly do video, but let me look. Is 240 even a thing on here? So I imagine it's full HD. Oh, it must be the slow quick mode. Okay, so let's go to S&Q. I'll be damned. There it is. Oh, I have to play with that. I forgot all about that. Uh, one camera and lens will never be a thing. I know, right? Not here. Dad, brother, mom, friends buried by each other. I still can't visit. Yeah. So you know exactly where I'm coming from, right? So I want to see someone with major gas. Marcus Picks. Oh, if you want to see somebody with major gas, okay. Yeah, Marcus Picks is he's the best thing that's happened to YouTube in a while. Oh, he just published this. So let's pause here. He has all his these look like Panasonics. These are his webcams. These are his like pocket cameras. Here's his Sony APS-C cameras. And then his Sony full frame cameras over here. So it looks like he's going full frame. Those look like pockets. These are APS-C. These are webcams, pocket cameras. Then his Micro Four Thirds. I don't know what these are. All right, and then look at all these giant ass cameras in the background. Look at his shirt. It says, "I don't shoot raw." That's hilarious. Oh my god, that is hilarious. So what's he's jibber jabbering about his Canon and oh look, he has an old Samsung over here. Wow. And there's this Panasonic stuff. There's his lovely wife. Yeah, his GM. He kept the Olympus body cap though, didn't he? And it's oh these are oh yeah the old G7s. Yeah, he's beautiful wife. What's her name? Kara or Carrie? And then all of his yeah his webcams. He likes his webcams or not webcams but his camcorders. And then his Fuji lenses or APS-C lenses, whatever they are. They look like Fuji lenses though. I didn't know he had a Fuji. Oh, he has an XM5. Okay, because I recognize some of these. I have some of these. Oh, okay. His Sony Zeiss stuff. Yeah, those are good lenses. And then his lovely wife and his full frame cameras. Wow. All right, so let's see. Is he giving all this away? He should. He's gonna. He's okay. I need to sign up so I can get one of those things. No, I don't. I don't need. I've never. I think maybe once I did, but I've never sent in my email to be on the list of giveaways. It's better somebody else that has nothing to try to get it. Um, Wow. My problem is I don't like parting with anything. It's amazing how quickly stuff accumulates. I know, right? I look at my videos from uh a few years ago compared to now in this same room, and it's like a huge difference. Like this room used to be empty, hardly anything in here. And now it's like it's giant, just so much stuff. Let me see here. Uh if I do this, it's slow today. Never mind. I'm in the same boat as Paul. I have to trade some stuff in to build some credit. Yeah. And Jude says, do you have a defined cleanup procedure to go through and use your gear in the wet? Olympus shooters prize their gear to be weather sealed, but hard to find their maintenance protocol. Yeah, I'm a fair weather photographer. I never go out in the rain. So I went out in the rain one time, and basically I just let the camera dry. I take the battery out, uh, I take the lens off, and I open the memory door and take the memory card out, and I let the camera dry overnight, and that was it. But I never, yeah, I'm not the right person to ask for that. I'm sorry, Jew. Yeah, he gives away a ton of stuff, right? No. His portrait style isn't to my taste, but he definitely knows a lot about lighting in general. Yeah. It helps to have infinite dollars. I guess relatively speaking, right? He has infinite money compared to me. But yeah, that Marcus, he's all right. He's all right. At least on YouTube. I've never met him in person, but on YouTube he looks like a great guy. And I was actually going to try one of his ice cream recipes. It's something about taking a frozen banana and mixing with cocoa powder. So I have a banana in my fridge right now, or in my freezer, and I was going to try his ice, non-dairy ice cream recipe and see how it tastes. So weatherproof or not, I don't get a drop of rain in mine. Always carry a plastic cover. Good idea. Yeah, I try not to get water on the camera in general. I'm a little I did take out my OM3 once because it was pouring rain. I didn't take it out because it was pouring rain, but it started to pour, and I was at the workshop and everybody had their cameras out, and uh I used something to cover the camera. I used one of my flash diffusers to cover the camera, but it still got soaking wet. And Marco says, if you watch Marco's backstory, he's really talented artist in many disciplines, painting, model building, etc. Yeah, I've seen some of his older videos where he talked about that. He's definitely very talented. And yeah, I'd like to meet him one day, maybe one day. Okay. Uh all right, so I think I'll call it here, guys. As always, it's been great talking to everybody, and I appreciate you being here with me this morning on Father's Day. I hope you guys, for those of you that are fathers, have a wonderful Father's Day, and you know, be good, eat healthy, exercise, so that we can be together for many more live streams together. I really look forward to these, and I greatly appreciate it. So, you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll be back on Tuesday. We'll talk about the OM5 maybe, but it's primarily for my shopping stream. But since the OM5 is released that day, and I'm going live, we might as well kill two birds with one stone, right? So, you guys have a great rest of your day.